The ancient oak creaked in the evening breeze, its shadow stretching across the yellowing fields of the Hayes family farm. Maren Hayes sat beneath its gnarled branches, her weathered journal open on her lap as she sketched the horizon, where strange lights had flickered the night before. Some called them meteors, others whispered of government tests. But Maren, who had spent 28 years learning to read the language of the land, felt something different in the air, a charge, a presence, a shift in the rhythm of things. "You're getting fanciful again," she muttered to herself, closing the journal with a snap. 3 months since inheriting Uncle James's farm, and already the isolation was getting to her. 5 years as a zookeeper in Columbus had trained her to observe, to catalog, to maintain professional distance. But something about returning to her childhood home had awakened old dreams, the kind that made her search the sky for signs. The goats bleated from their pen, reminding her of unfinished chores. Maren tucked the journal into her back pocket and rose, brushing bits of bark from her jeans. The evening routine waited for no one, especially not a reluctant farmer with her head in the clouds. The 3-generation farmhouse stood solid against the sunset, its stone foundation seemingly part of the earth itself. Inside, dinner dishes waited in the sink, and a stack of unpaid bills sat on the kitchen table beside Uncle James's ancient rotary phone. Maren ignored both, heading straight to the back door where her work boots stood at attention. Just the evening check. Then bed, she promised herself. Though sleep had been elusive lately, dreams of wings and whispers had left her restless, waking before dawn with fragments of impossible images fading from memory. The barn door groaned as she pushed it open, echoing across the empty yard. Solar lanterns clicked on automatically, casting warm pools of light along the central aisle, the familiar scents of hay, animal feed, and the earthy musk of well-worn wood greeted her as she moved through her rounds. The 2 horses, Thunder and Lightning, nickered softly from their stalls. The chickens had already settled for the night, their soft clucking quieting as she passed. When she reached the last stall, the one that had stood empty since the old milk cow died 3 winters ago, Maren paused. The padlock she'd fastened just that morning hung open, swinging gently. She frowned, certain she'd secured it after storing the new shipment of feed. "Hello," she called, voice echoing. "Nate, if that's you messing around." No answer came from the shadows, but a soft sound emanated from within the stall, something between a purr and a whistle. Maren reached for the pitchfork leaning against the wall, gripping it tightly as she approached. With her free hand, she unclipped the flashlight from her belt and aimed it through the slats. The beam caught a glint of something iridescent. She blinked, adjusting the angle. The light revealed not 1, but 4 small creatures huddled in the fresh straw. Their scales, if that's what they were, shimmered with colors that seemed to shift as she watched. Cobalt blue deepening to violet, emerald green flashing to gold. Delicate wings, still damp and translucent, lay folded against their sides. Steam rose from their nostrils in small, rhythmic puffs that fogged her flashlight lens. Maren's breath caught in her throat. The pitchfork clattered to the ground. Baby dragons. The impossible thought formed before she could stop it. The nearest creature stirred, lifting a small, triangular head. Eyes like polished amber blinked at her, pupils contracting to slits in the flashlight beam. Then, impossibly, it yawned, revealing not the fearsome teeth of legend, but small, pearly ridges like those of a newborn kitten. A puff of steam escaped, smelling faintly of cinnamon and ozone. Maren stumbled backward, heart hammering against her ribs. Her mind raced through catalogs of known species, reptiles, amphibians, rare birds. finding no match for the creatures before her. Years of zoological training screamed that this was impossible, while the child who had once searched these same fields for fairy rings whispered. Finally, she secured the stall with trembling hands, double-checking the lock before backing away. Whatever they were, escaped exotic pets, undiscovered species, or something she dared not name, they couldn't stay here. She needed help, expertise beyond her own. Yet as she hurried back to the house, phone already in hand, a strange protectiveness washed over her. Who could she call that wouldn't demand the creatures be taken away? Dissected? Studied in sterile labs? The local wildlife officer? The university? The media? Her finger hovered over the keypad, then dropped. No, not tonight. Tonight. She would research, think, plan. Tomorrow would be soon enough to invite the world in. Maren spent the night surrounded by open field guides, her laptop perched precariously on a stack of Uncle James's old journals. None of the books held answers, and the internet offered only fantasy artwork and movie stills in response to her increasingly desperate searches. Near dawn, she finally closed the last guide and rubbed her burning eyes. She needed professional help, but discretion was crucial. Scrolling through her contacts, she paused on one name, Dr. Elena Alvarez, the retired exotic animal veterinarian who had mentored her during college. If anyone could maintain both scientific objectivity and appropriate confidentiality, it would be Elena. The message she composed was deliberately vague. Unusual specimens found on property. Need discreet consultation. Can you come? The response came less than an hour later. Intrigued. Arriving tomorrow evening. Bring equipment? Maren typed quickly. Everything you have. With that arranged, she returned to the barn, carrying a cooler of fresh water and raw chicken from her refrigerator. She had no idea what the creatures ate, if they ate at all, but something in her training told her to offer protein to growing animals. The lock was undisturbed, but as she approached, a soft, humming vibration emanated from the stall. When she peered inside, all 4 creatures were awake, watching the door with uncanny focus. One, slightly larger than the others, with scales that shimmered more blue than green, stretched its wings experimentally, revealing a wingspan already the width of a dinner plate. "Hello there," Maren said softly, surprising herself. "Are you hungry?" At the sound of her voice, all 4 creatures tilted their heads in perfect unison. The blue one made a chirping sound that raised the hair on Maren's arms, not from fear, but from a strange sensation of being understood. She slid the water and chicken through the feeding slot, then stepped back to observe. The creatures approached cautiously, sniffing at the offerings. The smallest, a predominantly copper-scaled hatchling, dipped its muzzle into the water, then looked up at Maren with what she could have sworn was gratitude. None touched the chicken. Instead, the green-gold one stretched its neck toward the shaft of sunlight streaming through the barn window. It opened its mouth as if drinking in the light itself, its scales brightening visibly. "Photosynthesis," Maren whispered, scribbling notes, or something else entirely. She spent the morning observing, documenting every movement and sound. By midday, she had filled 10 pages with observations. Specimens show cohesive social behavior, possible clutchmates or familial group, communication through chirps, purrs, and possible telepathic means, respond to thoughts before verbalization. Wings developing rapidly, structural similarity to bats, but with unknown membranous material. Temperature regulation through steam expulsion. No apparent waste elimination observed. The sound of tires on gravel pulled her from her notes. Panic flared. Dr. Alvarez wasn't due until evening. Marin rushed to the barn door and peered out to see Nate Wheeler's ancient pickup truck coming to a stop beside her porch. Nate had been her closest neighbor and oldest friend since childhood. His family's farm bordered the Hayes property, and he had checked in regularly since her return. Under normal circumstances, his lanky frame and easy smile would be a welcome sight. Today, they complicated everything. "There you are," he called, slamming the truck door. "Thought maybe you'd finally gone into town for supplies. You've been scarce." Marin stepped out, pulling the barn door shut behind her. "Just busy with repairs. You know how it is." Nate's eyes narrowed slightly. He'd known her too long to miss the tension in her voice. "Everything okay? You look like you haven't slept." "Fine, just fine." She moved toward the house, hoping he would follow rather than gravitate toward the barn. "Want some coffee?" "Sure." He fell into step beside her, but glanced back at the barn. "Thought I saw some strange lights over this way last night, like the meteor shower last week, but focused right over your property." Marin's pulse quickened. "Probably just reflections off the solar panels I installed on the south barn roof." In the kitchen, she busied herself with the coffee maker, keeping her back to him as she struggled to compose her features. Should she tell him? Nate was trustworthy, practical, but he was also deeply connected to the community, related to half the town council. If word spread, Marin. His voice was closer than she expected. She turned to find him studying her with concern. "What's going on? And don't say nothing. You've got that same look you had when you found that wounded hawk in 6th grade and tried to hide it in your desk." She almost laughed at the memory and at how well he still read her. "It's complicated. Nate, try me." Marin took a deep breath. "I found something. In the barn. Something I can't explain." His expression shifted from concern to wariness. "Like what?" "Like..." She hesitated, then decided on honesty without specifics. "Like something not from around here. I've got Dr. Alvarez coming to look at them tonight." "Them?" Nate's eyebrows rose. "And you called Elena instead of animal control? What are we talking about here? Marin? Endangered species? Exotic pets?" She met his gaze steadily. "I don't know what they are. That's the truth. But they're special. And I need time to figure things out before the whole world descends on this farm." Nate studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay. You always did have good instincts with creatures. But Marin..." His expression grew serious. "Be careful. If word gets out, you've got something unusual here. It won't just be scientists showing up. Media circus, government types, folks looking to make a buck. Your quiet life would be over." The weight of his warning settled on her shoulders. He was right, of course. Whatever was happening in her barn could change everything, not just for her, but potentially for the world. "Will you help me?" she asked quietly. "Just until Dr. Alvarez gets here and we know more." Nate's slow smile was answer enough. "Always. But I get to see them first." An hour later, Nate stood beside Marin at the stall door, his usual eloquence reduced to a single whispered expletive. The creatures had arranged themselves in a semicircle, all facing the humans, with identical expressions of curious assessment. "Those are..." Nate started. "I don't know what they are," Marin interrupted. "They look like..." "I know what they look like, but they can't be." Nate ran a hand through his sandy hair, his expression cycling through disbelief, wonder, and concern. "Have they eaten anything?" "Not the chicken, but they seem to absorb light somehow. And they drink water. As if on cue, the blue one stretched toward the sunbeam again, its scales shimmering more brightly. A soft humming filled the air, and to their astonishment, small sparks of blue electricity danced between its wingtips. "That's new," Marin whispered, scribbling in her notebook. Nate gripped the stall door. "Marin, what if they're dangerous? What if they grow and, I don't know, breathe fire or something?" She thought about the gentle chirps, the way they tilted their heads at her voice, the absence of aggressive behavior. "I don't think they mean harm. They seem almost aware, intelligent. That's what worries me." Nate's voice dropped lower. "If they're as smart as you think, someone will want to use that. Weaponize it." The word sent a chill through her. He wasn't wrong. Mankind's history with discovering new species was hardly benevolent, especially when those species possessed valuable qualities. "Dr. Alvarez will help us figure out the next steps," Marin said, trying to project more confidence than she felt. "She's discreet and ethical." Nate nodded, though uncertainty lingered in his expression. "I should get back. Dad's expecting help with the irrigation system." He turned to leave, then paused. "I won't say anything. Marin, but be smart about this." After he left, Marin returned to her observations. The creatures had grown noticeably since morning, at least an inch in length. Their wings now opened fully, revealing intricate patterns of iridescent veins. The smallest one had developed a crest along its spine that pulsed with copper light. When she spoke aloud, narrating her notes, all four turned toward her voice with such focused attention that she began reading passages from her Uncle James's journals, descriptions of seasonal changes, wildlife sightings, the rhythms of farm life. They listened with what appeared to be rapt interest, occasionally exchanging glances as if discussing the content among themselves. By late afternoon, exhaustion overtook her, and Marin dozed against the barn wall, notebook still open on her lap. She woke to the sound of a car engine and Dr. Elena Alvarez's distinctive triple-tap knock on the barn door. "It's open!" Marin called, scrambling to her feet. Dr. Alvarez entered with the same commanding presence Marin remembered from her student days. Silver-streaked black hair pulled into a tight bun, piercing dark eyes that missed nothing, and the slight limp from a long-ago encounter with a startled rhinoceros. She carried 2 large cases of equipment and wore an expression of professional curiosity. "Marin Hayes," she said warmly, "still finding trouble in unlikely places." "I see." Marin managed a tired smile. "Thank you for coming, Dr. Alvarez, and for the discretion. Elena, please. I'm retired now." She set down her cases and surveyed the barn. "Where are these mysterious specimens of yours?" Marin led her to the stall. Dr. Alvarez's composure slipped only momentarily, a sharp intake of breath, a widening of eyes, before her scientific training reasserted itself. "Fascinating," she whispered, kneeling to observe more closely. "May I?" At Marin's nod, she unlocked the stall and entered slowly, movements deliberate and non-threatening. The creatures watched with interest, but showed no fear. The blue one even stretched its neck toward her, nostrils flaring as if to catch her scent. Dr. Alvarez spent the next 3 hours conducting non-invasive examinations, recording temperatures, taking scale scrapings, analyzing the steam from their exhalations, and collecting minute blood samples with specialized equipment that seemed to cause no pain or distress. Throughout the process, she narrated her findings with growing excitement. Temperature regulation unlike any reptile I've encountered, internal heat generation without the corresponding metabolic signatures. Wing structures contain unknown fibrous material with incredible tensile strength. Blood composition includes elements not on our periodic table. Marin. Cellular structure appears to use silicon alongside carbon, suggesting She paused, looking up from her microscope with an expression of wonder and disbelief. Suggesting what? Marin prompted. Dr. Alvarez removed her gloves slowly. Non-terrestrial origin. The words hung in the air between them. You mean? I mean these creatures are not from Earth. Marin, their DNA, if we can even call it that, includes sequences I've never seen in any terrestrial organism. The cellular structure, the elemental composition, the energy signatures. Nothing matches known evolutionary patterns. Marin sank onto a hay bale, the confirmation of her unspoken suspicions leaving her lightheaded. Aliens? Actual extraterrestrial life forms? I would stake my scientific reputation on it. Dr. Alvarez's voice held both awe and caution. The question is, how did they get here? And why your barn? Before Marin could respond, the blue creature chirped loudly and approached the stall door. It fixed its amber eyes on Marin with such intensity that she felt a strange pressure behind her temples. Not painful, but insistent, like someone knocking for entry. Dr. Alvarez noticed her reaction. What is it? I don't know. It feels like. Marin struggled to articulate the sensation, like it's trying to communicate. Telepathically? Despite her scientific skepticism, Dr. Alvarez watched closely. Can you understand anything? Marin closed her eyes, focusing on the pressure. Fragments came through, not words exactly, but impressions, emotions, flashes of light and color, a sense of journey, of distance, of purpose. They were sent, she whispered, the realization forming as she spoke. They're not lost or abandoned. They're here deliberately. The blue creature bobbed its head as if in confirmation. Dr. Alvarez looked from Marin to the creature and back again. We need to run more tests, carefully, ethically, but thoroughly. If these are sentient ambassadors from another world, then we need to protect them, Marin finished firmly, from anyone who might exploit or harm them. Agreed. Dr. Alvarez began packing her equipment. I'll analyze these samples in my home lab. No one else needs to know. For now. But Marin, her expression grew grave. If they continue growing at this rate, you won't be able to keep them hidden for long. And if they truly are attempting communication, I know. Marin gazed at the creatures, who had arranged themselves once more in their semicircle, watching the humans with unblinking attention. We're on borrowed time. That night, after Dr. Alvarez departed with promises to return the following evening, Marin dreamed of stars, not as distant points of light, but as doorways, portals through which iridescent wings carried messages between worlds dying and reborn. She woke before dawn, the dream still vivid, to find her bedroom filled with a soft blue glow. Sitting up with a jolt, she discovered the source. All 4 creatures perched on her windowsill, their scales pulsing with light. The window, which she was certain she had closed, stood open, the curtains billowing in the pre-dawn breeze. They had escaped the barn, found her, sought her out specifically. How did you? She began, then stopped as the blue one leapt gracefully from the sill to her bed. It approached cautiously, amber eyes locked with hers. The pressure returned to her temples, stronger now, more focused. And suddenly, she understood. Guardian. The concept flooded her mind, not the English word, but the pure meaning behind it. She was chosen, selected, entrusted. Why me? She whispered. Images flashed in response, her gentleness with animals, her respect for life, her solitude among the stars. They had been watching, or something had, before the eggs ever arrived. The other 3 creatures joined the first, forming a circle on her quilt. together. Their mental projection strengthened, showing Marin glimpses of their world, a place of crystalline spires and violet skies, oceans that flowed upward, and fields of light-drinking flora. Beautiful, alien, and dying, atmosphere degrading, resources depleted by centuries of technological advancement without ecological balance. Earth was their sanctuary, not a conquest, not an invasion, but a desperate hope for survival. And humans, specific humans chosen for their compassion and connection to their own world, were to be their guardians, their teachers, their partners in mutual salvation. There are more of you, Marin realized aloud. More clutches, more guardians. Affirmation pulsed through the mental link. Hundreds scattered globally, each group bonded to a human caretaker who could help them adapt, understand, and eventually fulfill their purpose. Environmental regeneration through biological technologies beyond human development. The copper one nudged her hand gently. Another image formed, the barn's oldest ewe. Suffering from an infection Marin had been treating without success. The creature showed her its intention, healing through touch, through a transfer of energy that would combat the disease. "You want to help," she said softly, "to show me what you can do." Dawn was breaking as Marin led the creatures back to the barn. The ewe lay in her stall, breathing labored, eyes dull with pain. Marin had expected to find her dead that morning, the antibiotics having failed to improve her condition. The copper creature approached the suffering animal without hesitation. It placed one delicate claw on the ewe's swollen joint, where the infection had concentrated. A soft glow spread from the point of contact, copper light seeping into the ewe's flesh like liquid sunshine. The ewe bleated once in surprise, then relaxed visibly as the light pulsed through her system. Within minutes, the swelling began to recede. Within an hour, the ewe stood shakily. Then, with increasing strength, the infection completely neutralized. Marin stared in wonderment, scientific training battling with the evidence before her eyes. "That's impossible," she whispered. Yet it wasn't. It was simply biology advanced beyond human understanding, cellular manipulation at the quantum level. Dr. Alvarez would later theorize. The merging of technology and biology in ways Earth's science had only begun to imagine. Over the next 3 days, a pattern emerged. The creatures, whom Marin had begun mentally calling the invoice, though they projected no name for themselves, demonstrated more of their abilities. The green-gold one generated a field that accelerated plant growth, turning a patch of barren soil into a lush garden overnight. The smallest, predominantly silver one, projected holographic maps of stellar configurations. And the blue one, clearly the leader, continued strengthening its mental connection with Marin, sharing more of their purpose and history. Dr. Alvarez documented everything with meticulous care, her scientific skepticism gradually giving way to cautious wonder. "This could transform medicine," she whispered, after watching the copper one heal a laceration on Nate's arm, a wound gained while helping reinforce the barn's structure to better hide the growing creatures. Ecological restoration, renewable energy. The applications are endless. If the world doesn't panic and try to weaponize them first, Nate muttered, flexing his newly healed arm with astonishment. It was the question that haunted their discussions each evening. When and how to reveal the envoy's existence to the wider world? Dr. Alvarez argued for a careful approach through scientific channels. Nate advocated continued secrecy until they better understood the full implications. Marin, connected most deeply to the creatures, felt the pressure of their unspoken timeline. "They're growing too quickly to hide much longer," she pointed out as they sat around her kitchen table on the fourth night. The creatures now stood knee-high to an adult human, their wingspan approaching 4 feet. And they have a mission that requires more than just us. Dr. Alvarez nodded thoughtfully. Their accelerated growth suggests they're adapted for rapid maturation, biologically efficient for interstellar seeding operations. In English, Doc? Nate prompted. They're designed to grow up fast and get to work, she clarified. Likely because whatever environmental crisis they're meant to address is urgent. Outside, thunder rumbled, the leading edge of a storm system that had developed with unusual speed. Weather alerts had been pinging on their phones all afternoon, warning of possible tornado conditions developing overnight. Marin frowned, glancing at the barometer on the wall. The pressure had dropped precipitously in the last hour. That's coming in faster than forecast. A sudden gust rattled the windows. Rain began lashing against the glass with violent intensity. Nate moved to the window, peering out at the darkened landscape. I should get home before this gets worse. Dad will need help securing the livestock. Before he could reach the door, a high-pitched whine cut through the storm noise, a sound like nothing they'd ever heard, rising in both volume and frequency until it vibrated the dishes in the cupboards. The lights flickered, then died completely. In the sudden darkness, a blue glow emanated from the direction of the barn, not the gentle illumination of the creature's scales, but a pulsing, powerful radiance that pushed back the night. The envoys, Marin whispered, already moving toward the door. Marin, wait! Nate called after her. That storm! But she was already running through the downpour, drawn by both concern and an inexplicable certainty that this moment was what they had been waiting for, what the envoys had been preparing her to understand. The blue light engulfed the barn, seeping through every crack and window. As Marin approached, she felt rather than heard a vibration, a harmonic resonance that seemed to rewrite the air itself. The barn door swung open as she reached for it, revealing a transformed interior. The envoys stood in a perfect circle, wings extended, scales blazing with light. Above them, the air itself seemed to fold and twist, creating a spiraling tunnel of energy that extended up through the roof, though the structure remained physically intact, and into the storm-racked sky. Dr. Alvarez and Nate arrived behind her, their expressions mirroring her own awe. It's a beacon, Dr. Alvarez breathed. They're calling. Calling what? Nate's voice held equal parts wonder and apprehension. His answer came in the form of a sudden silence. The storm, which had been howling around them, stopped, not gradually, but instantly, as if someone had flipped a switch. The clouds directly above the energy vortex parted in a perfect circle, revealing a starry sky where none should have been visible. And from that circle of stars, something descended. It wasn't a craft, not in any conventional sense. It was organic, living, a massive version of the envoys themselves, but with modifications that spoke of technological integration. Its wingspan stretched wider than the barn itself, iridescent scales refracting the moonlight into rainbows. Where mechanical ships would have landing gear, this being had crystalline appendages that touched down with impossible gentleness around the barn's perimeter. From its back, a section opened like a flower blooming. A ramp of translucent material extended downward, touching the ground just yards from where they stood. Marin felt the blue envoy's presence in her mind. The moment comes. Fear not. A figure appeared at the top of the ramp, humanoid in basic shape, but clearly not human. Tall and slender, with skin that seemed translucent enough to reveal a network of luminescent veins beneath. Its eyes were large, solid amber without pupil or iris, set in a face of delicate, almost crystalline features. It wore no clothing, but its body appeared covered in a fine layer of iridescent scales similar to the envoy's. It descended slowly, movements fluid and graceful despite the alien proportions. When it reached the bottom of the ramp, it extended a 7-fingered hand, palm upward, in what was unmistakably a gesture of peaceful greeting. Marin felt Nate and Dr. Alvarez tense beside her. The moment balanced on a knife's edge. First contact. The meeting of worlds, with all the hope and terror such a moment contained in human history and imagination. The blue envoy nudged her forward gently. Guardian. Bridge the gap. Taking a deep breath, Marin stepped forward alone. The rain had soaked her to the skin, but she hardly noticed as she approached the waiting figure. When she stood before it, she mirrored its gesture, extending her own hand, palm up. The being placed its palm above hers, not touching, but close enough that she could feel warmth radiating from its skin. A gentle pressure touched her mind, different from the envoy's communication, more structured, more complex, yet fundamentally similar. We are the seeded, came the concept, rather than words. These are our emissaries. You have cared for them well. Guardian Marin Hayes. They're beautiful, she said simply, instinctively knowing the being would understand her spoken words. Why have you come now? The bonding is complete. The network awakens. It is time for understanding between worlds. Images flooded her mind, hundreds of locations worldwide where similar scenes were unfolding. Farms in China, research stations in Antarctica, villages in Kenya, suburban backyards in Australia. Everywhere, humans chosen for their connection to their environment stood before beings like this one, forming a global network of first contact. We offer partnership. The being continued. Our world dies from the same sickness that threatens yours, the separation of technology from natural systems. Our emissaries carry the cure, biological technologies that heal rather than harm, that regenerate rather than deplete. The concept expanded in Marin's mind. The envoys were living technology, bioengineered organisms that could process pollution, regenerate dead soil, purify water, and harness clean energy through biological processes millions of years more advanced than Earth's solar or wind power. They were the product of a civilization that had realized its mistake too late to save its own world, but had developed the means to help another avoid the same fate. And in exchange, Marin asked, practical even in this extraordinary moment. Sanctuary for our children, a new beginning for our kind, alongside yours. Shared knowledge, shared growth, shared worlds. The offer was breathtaking in its scope and simplicity, not conquest, not colonization, but symbiosis. Two intelligent species recognizing their parallel journeys and choosing to continue together rather than perish separately. Behind her, Marin sensed, rather than saw, Dr. Alvarez and Nate moving closer, drawn by the powerful exchange. The four envoys had approached as well, forming a circle around human and alien alike. The choice must be freely made. The being communicated. By many voices, not one. We offer our truth to all who would hear it. Understanding dawned. You want to announce your presence, globally, simultaneously. The time of hiding ends. The time of healing begins, if you will have it. Marin looked back at Dr. Alvarez and Nate, seeing her own tumultuous emotions reflected in their expressions. This was bigger than one farm, one small group of humans. This was a turning point for an entire planet. There will be fear, she warned, resistance, those who see threats rather than hope. Yes, the being's mental tone carried both understanding and determination. As on our world when the healing began, but we have learned that truth must precede transformation. Your people must choose with open eyes. Maren felt the weight of the moment, not just her own decision, but her role in a planetary one. What do you need from me? From us? Stand witness. Share your experience. Show that first contact has already occurred without destruction. That trust has been built. That possibility exists. The being raised its other hand, and from it projected a holographic sphere, Earth as seen from space, with hundreds of points of light marking the locations of other envoy groups. Each point pulsed in sequence, creating a wave of illumination that circled the globe. When all are ready, we will speak to your world. One message, many voices, an invitation, not a demand. Maren looked at the projection, then at the 4 envoys who had entered her life less than a week ago and changed everything. The blue one met her gaze with what she now recognized as profound intelligence and something like affection. How long? She asked. The network nears completion. Days, not weeks. Dr. Alvarez stepped forward, professional curiosity overcoming her initial caution. The biological technologies you mentioned, how will they be implemented? Through the envoys? The being turned its amber gaze to her. They are the first generation. From them will come specialized forms for different ecosystems, different needs. Some will restore forests. Others will purify oceans. Others will transform waste into energy. All biocompatible with Earth systems. And controllable? Nate asked, his practical nature asserting itself. Not invasive or disruptive to existing ecosystems? Control remains with the Guardians, humans like Maren who form the bond. The emissaries respond to that connection, limiting their growth and adaptation to what Earth can sustain. Balance is the foundation of our approach. We have learned the cost of imbalance. A sound like distant thunder interrupted the exchange. The being looked upward, and Maren followed its gaze to see the circular opening in the clouds beginning to fluctuate. The window narrows. The being communicated. Atmospheric conditions shift. I must return. But the emissaries remain with you. Prepare. Guardian Maren Hayes. The world will look to you and others like you when understanding is needed most. Before Maren could respond, a blinding flash of blue-white light engulfed them. When her vision cleared, the large organic ship and its pilot were ascending rapidly through the closing atmospheric window. Within seconds, they had vanished, leaving only the 4 envoys and the stunned humans standing in the suddenly ordinary farmyard. The storm resumed, as if it had never paused, though with notably less intensity. Rain fell gently now, washing away the last visible traces of the extraordinary visitation. Did that just happen? Nate whispered, rain dripping from his hair. Dr. Alvarez, ever practical, was already checking her equipment. I recorded everything. Audio, video, atmospheric readings. She looked up, eyes wide with the implications. We have proof. Maren. Actual scientific documentation of extraterrestrial contact. But Maren's attention remained on the envoys, who had gathered around her with an air of expectancy. The blue one projected clearly. The work begins now. Others will need guidance before the announcement. Others? Maren questioned. Local humans, community, leaders. Prepare the soil before planting the seed. She understood the metaphor immediately. Before a global announcement, they needed to establish a local foundation of acceptance and understanding, to demonstrate on a small scale what would soon be proposed globally. We start with those we trust, she decided aloud. Build a circle of support, Show what's possible rather than just tell. Nate nodded slowly, already thinking through the implications. My father, the mayor, Dr. Lindstrom at the clinic, people with influence who can help others understand rather than panic. And I can bring in scientific colleagues, Dr. Alvarez added, those who will approach this with open minds and ethical frameworks. The Blue Envoy bobbed its head in what had become its characteristic gesture of agreement. A wise path. The Guardian understands preparation. That night, none of them slept. They sat in Marin's kitchen, planning their approach while the envoys listened from a makeshift nest of blankets in the corner. By dawn, they had a list of 7 key community members to approach first, people chosen for their combination of influence, discretion, and open-mindedness. The process began that very day. With carefully orchestrated introductions to the envoys, Dr. Lindstrom, the town's most respected physician, arrived first, skeptical until the copper envoy healed a patient's chronic wound before his astonished eyes. Mayor Chambers came next, her political wariness transformed to cautious optimism when shown the green gold envoy's ability to restore soil in the drought-stricken community garden. Each demonstration was tailored to address a specific local need, practical applications that resonated with immediate concerns rather than abstract promises of global transformation. With each success, their circle of allies grew. Not all reactions were positive. Sheriff Wilson stormed out, threatening federal involvement until Nate's father, his longtime fishing buddy, talked him down. Reverend Marshall spent hours in theological debate with Dr. Alvarez before cautiously accepting the possibility that God's creation might extend beyond one world. Through it all, Marin served as the bridge, the human face of an inhuman partnership, translating alien concepts into terms her neighbors could understand and accept. The mental link with the Blue Envoy grew stronger daily, allowing her to access increasingly complex information about their capabilities and intentions. 5 days after the visitation, their preparations faced an unexpected test. A violent spring storm system formed with unprecedented speed over the region. Weather services issued evacuation orders as a catastrophic F4 tornado developed, its projected path cutting directly through the town center. As sirens wailed and families rushed to storm shelters, Marin felt the Blue Envoy's urgent presence in her mind. We can help. The atmospheric manipulations are within our capability. You can stop a tornado? She asked incredulously. Not stop, redirect, dissipate. Through collective effort. Marin made a split-second decision. Gathering the envoys into Nate's truck, they raced toward the highest point overlooking the town, the water tower hill, where they could see both the approaching funnel cloud and the community below. Word spread rapidly through their network of confidants. Dr. Alvarez arrived with scientific equipment to document whatever would happen. Mayor Chambers brought emergency management officials who watched with skeptical hope. A small crowd gathered, drawn by rumors and desperation. The 4 envoys positioned themselves facing the approaching storm, wings fully extended. The blue one projected to Marin. We require energy. From you. Through the bond. Understanding instinctively. Marin placed her hands on the Blue Envoy's shoulders. A circuit completed. She felt it like an electric current running through her body, drawing something from her core and amplifying it through the envoy's biological systems. The other 3 connected similarly with Nate, Dr. Alvarez, and the mayor, forming a human-alien circuit of shared purpose and power. A visible field of energy expanded outward from the group, a translucent dome of blue-green light that rose into the sky toward the approaching funnel cloud. Where the field met the tornado's edge, the violent rotation began to slow. The dark funnel wavered, its path shifting as the energy field pushed against it like an invisible hand. Those watching saw the impossible, a tornado bending away from populated areas, its rotation gradually dissipating as it moved over empty fields. Within 20 minutes, the immediate threat had passed. The storm continued, but its deadly core had been neutralized before reaching the town. No lives were lost, no homes destroyed. In the aftermath, as rain fell gently on the gathered crowd, silence gave way to murmurs of astonishment, then scattered applause, then cheers. The envoys, energy depleted from their effort, huddled together as Marin explained what had happened, not as a miracle, but as a demonstration of what partnership between species could accomplish. "This is just the beginning," she told the growing crowd, her voice carrying with newfound authority. "In the coming days, our world will learn that we are not alone, and that those who have joined us bring not conquest, but cooperation, not demands, but possibilities." The local news covered the miraculous tornado diversion with interviews from credible witnesses: the mayor, Dr. Lindstrom, respected farmers and teachers. Social media spread the story beyond regional boundaries, creating a foundation of positive first impressions before the global announcement could take place. 2 days later, the Blue Envoy woke Marin before dawn. "The time has come. The network is complete." Around the world, other Guardians received the same message. The coordinated revelation would begin at noon GMT, a synchronized global broadcast facilitated through the Envoy's technology and delivered through all available communication channels. Marin gathered with her expanded circle on the Hayes farm as the moment approached. The envoys, now nearly adult-sized with wingspans of 8 feet, arranged themselves in formation before the ancient oak tree. Community members, some still wary but all now informed, assembled on the lawn. Television crews from regional stations set up equipment, having been alerted that something significant would occur. At precisely noon, GMT, the Blue Envoy projected an energy field that connected with the local broadcast equipment. Similar connections formed at hundreds of locations worldwide. Television signals, internet streams, radio broadcasts, all simultaneously carried the same message to humanity. The transmission began not with words, but with images, a visual journey through the seeded's world, their environmental collapse, their technological evolution, and finally, their outreach to Earth. Then came the proposition, delivered in multiple human languages through the mental translation of Guardians worldwide. "We are the seeded. We come in peace and partnership. Our emissaries have lived among you, bonded with chosen Guardians who have witnessed our true nature and intentions. We offer biological technologies to heal environmental damage, generate clean energy, and create sustainable systems that benefit both our species. We ask for sanctuary for our children and cooperation in building a shared future. The choice is yours." The message concluded with scenes from communities worldwide where envoys had already demonstrated their abilities, healing the sick, restoring polluted waters, revitalizing dead soil, diverting natural disasters. Ordinary humans testified to what they had witnessed firsthand. As the broadcast ended, Marin stood before the cameras that had captured the local transmission, the Blue Envoy at her side. She spoke directly to a world now forever changed. "My name is Marin Hayes. 1 week ago, I discovered what appeared to be baby dragons in my barn. Today, I stand before you as a guardian, a bridge between worlds. What these beings offer is not domination or replacement, but partnership. They have shown me possibilities I never imagined. They have reminded us that true salvation comes not from conquering nature, but from working within it. The choice before us isn't whether to believe in aliens. They're here, regardless of our belief. The choice is whether we'll join them in healing what we've damaged and building something better than either of our species could create alone. The global reaction unfolded in waves, initial shock and disbelief, followed by the slow acceptance that comes with overwhelming evidence. Governments scrambled to respond. Religious leaders gathered in emergency conclaves. Scientific communities mobilized to investigate and verify. Conspiracy theories flourished alongside genuine questions. Military forces went on high alert, even as environmental organizations celebrated. Stock markets fluctuated wildly as industries realized the implications for energy, agriculture, and medicine. Through it all, the network of guardians and envoys served as anchors of stability, demonstrating practical applications, answering questions, and providing consistent evidence of benevolent intent. Small-scale projects began in communities worldwide, creating visible proof of concept that no amount of speculation could dismiss. 6 months later, Maren sat beneath the ancient oak tree, journal open on her lap as she had so many times before. But now she documented not just the rhythms of one farm, but the transformation of a world. The Hayes property had become one of hundreds of demonstration sites globally, living laboratories where the envoy's biological technologies were developed, tested, and implemented. The barn had been expanded into a research facility where Dr. Alvarez led a team of scientists working alongside the original 4 envoys, now fully mature and actively developing specialized offspring for specific environmental applications. In the fields beyond, experimental crops grew in once depleted soil, nourished by living systems that extracted nitrogen from the air more efficiently than any chemical fertilizer. Solar collection organisms, plant-like creations with scales similar to the envoys, generated electricity while simultaneously purifying the surrounding air. Similar sites worldwide had begun addressing regional challenges: coral reef restoration in Australia, desert reclamation in North Africa, pollution filtration in urban centers. The global network of guardians coordinated these efforts, ensuring balanced implementation and appropriate cultural integration. Not all had embraced the partnership. Pockets of resistance remained, some political, some religious, some simply fear of the unknown. But as tangible benefits emerged and no signs of harmful intent materialized, opposition gradually softened. Maren closed her journal, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded her of the envoy's scales. The blue one, whom she now called Azure, though it needed no human name, approached and settled beside her under the oak. "You are contemplative today, Guardian," it projected. "Just thinking about how much has changed, how much is still changing. Change is the constant of living systems, adaptation, evolution, growth. And partnership," Maren added. "I never expected my life would lead here." Azure's mental tone carried something like amusement. "Did your kind not have legends of humans bonding with dragons? Perhaps your stories remembered something your science forgot." Maren smiled at the thought. Perhaps humanity had always sensed it wasn't alone, had encoded that knowledge in myths and legends, waiting for the day when fantasy would become reality. In the distance, Nate's truck approached along the driveway, returning from a regional coordination meeting. Behind him followed a convoy of vehicles, government officials, scientific teams, and curious visitors who had scheduled tours of the demonstration site. The work of building a new world continued, one connection, one conversation, one small miracle at a time. It wasn't always easy. It wasn't always harmonious. But it was, Maren reflected, exactly what both species needed: a reminder that true salvation lay not in isolation, but in reaching across boundaries, in opening one's heart to the impossible, in finding kindred spirits among the stars. She placed her hand on Azur's shimmering scales, feeling the warm pulse of life so different from her own, yet connected to it in ways she was still discovering. Together, they rose to greet the arriving vehicles, ready to build another bridge between worlds,